Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, everybody. Kia ora. I'm Liz Rem as well, and Rachel, our wonderful Rachel Small, who is our Canada coordinator for World Beyond War, and myself, we are co-facilitating this meeting, and it's so wonderful to see all of you here. So I'm on the board of World Beyond War, and I'm also National Coordinator for World Beyond War Aotearoa New Zealand.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. So yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's here. I don't know where everyone who's here is from, but I know that there's at least three, maybe four continents represented among those of us who are here. So this is really great to see. And we got regrets from tons of folks who will look for the information after, but couldn't make it out right at this time. So the purpose of this meeting, as hopefully you all know, is to support each other in planning towards the global mobilization to stop Lockheed Martin from April 21st to April 28th. Over 90 groups around the world have endorsed the mobilization so far and made various types of commitments of how they will be part of it and support it. So it's many more than will make it out tonight. So we're part of a much bigger group. World Beyond War is one organization that's part of about a handful of organizations have been the core organizers of this mobilization, but we're thrilled to have these 90 more groups and many more individuals join as part of this. We're up against literally the world's biggest weapons manufacturer, the organization, the entity in the world that profits most from war and violence. So the more of us that can come together, it's part of this initiative, this brand new initiative, the better. And we're just so thrilled that you're all here today. So I think that you all are here because you already know a little bit about the mobilization. I just wanted to give like less than 1 minute of history about it. This was not some sort of big plan that's been in the works for years. How this came up was that there were a number of groups in Colombia, in South Korea, in Palestine, in Canada, in New Zealand, Australia, in a few different countries, in England, who were resisting arms fairs. We were all trying to shut down these big arms fairs where they're selling these weapons that are used around the world. And we were in touch together to try to share strategy. And at a certain point, we realized, oh, we share this very big villain in common, many, in fact, but Lockheed Martin is the biggest. And maybe one way we can collaborate together globally is to probably not shut down Lockheed Martin on our first global mobilization, but give them a really bad day, a really bad week, and really show that as they globalize their weapon sales, as they reach almost every corner of the earth, and certainly every war on earth, we can also target them where they are. We can also be united globally against them. So that was sort of the idea for this. We didn't know if it would just be sort of the 5 or 6 groups initially who came up with the idea who would be involved, but we're thrilled that it has spread all over the world. And as I mentioned, that there's almost 100 groups now who are taking it on. So this global mobilization is very exciting, and it's just the beginning. And I just can't say enough how thrilled and honored we are that you are joining us in this and are using your precious time to co-organize together. So that's that's really all there is to the idea of the mobilization. We are not going to tell every group what they have to do in each place. You know your local area best, but we did want to create a space for us to share strategies with each other and share some ideas of what is happening. And the very first thing that I wanted to do with this time right now is to ask a few different groups who have very specific plans already in place, maybe up to 4 or 5 groups, to take no more than a minute right now and share with us what your plans are. Most people have not yet finalized their plans for the 21st to the 28th, but for those who have, I think it would be so helpful for all of us to hear what those are. I can go first. And you know what? I didn't even introduce myself. I'm sorry. My name is Rachel Small. I'm the Canada organizer with World Beyond War, and I'm based in Toronto, which is the biggest city in Canada. So one thing we're working on here as part of this week of mobilization is we've printed out a giant Lockheed Martin ad that we have fact-checked and corrected slightly so that it's a more accurate portrayal of what they're actually selling. And we're going to be putting it up as a guerrilla billboard targeting our politicians who in Canada have just committed to buy 88 new Lockheed Martin jets. This is the second biggest purchase in Canadian history as a country. So this is huge. And so the action that we're taking, one of the actions we're taking is putting up this guerrilla billboard that's a mock Lockheed Martin ad. So that's an example of one thing that we're doing. No, Ken, this event cannot be broadcasted. This is a private meeting right now, but we can talk later about how we'll get the media out about actions that we do on April 21st to 28th. So that's one example from us. I wanted to ask one of the folks who's been involved in one of the Code Pink actions that I know it's a few days before the 21st, but I wondered if you could give kind of a 1-minute spiel about your plan as a way of giving some inspiration as well. Is it okay to put you on the spot?
Are you talking about me?
Yeah, I think so, Cynthia. I think you'd be
Okay.
best to speak to it.
Sure. We've chosen traditional tax day, April 15, to go to a Lockheed facility in Palo Alto. And we're not keeping it a secret exactly, but we expect to be greeted by security there. And we're joining with the Pacific Life community, Raging Grannies, and we are inviting a wide group of people, including WILP. And we're also inviting Veterans for Peace. And we're trying to get the climate groups interested, 350 in Silicon Valley, Extinction Rebellion, Sunrise Movement. We're just hoping to get a wide variety of people because climate and militarism are very connected. So that's our plan for the 15th. And it should be wonderful in terms of getting a lot of energy there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. And I think it's a
Thank
great
you.
example because in contrast to mine, which is more like a sneaky secret action, we're not going to tell everyone ahead of time that we're putting up a billboard or else the police will stop us, right? Versus Cynthia's is this public protest. And I've seen that you guys are doing a great job of spreading the word and even offering some carpooling people to get out to the facility. So I think that's wonderful. I wanted to call on Sakura Saunders, not to talk about necessarily a plan for April, but they just recently did some great little actions at a Raytheon facility and at a Lockheed facility, which I think is a great example of how you don't necessarily need to get 100 people out to a rally to still have a really big impact at these facilities. Can I call on you, Sakura?
Sure. Well, I'm in a smaller area, so it's easy to get press whenever you do anything, especially during COVID. Everything's been pretty shut down. So we make up for crowds with very big banners. And so we had one, I forget what it said. I think it said Lockheed Martin kills children, but it had a bunch of red handprints on it because we were doing an art build with my 5-year-old at the time and got him all into it. And then we did another one at the Raytheon facility. It was a small office on a military base, but we went right out to where they were and, you know, got a bunch of people and made some really fun signs. And we were on the nightly news, which was terrific. So yeah, even, you know, a small, I mean, that was probably like 15 of us there. But a small group of us were able to make a difference just by sending out a media advisory a couple days beforehand and then media release the day of with where we were going to be and also listing what the visuals were going to be. So they knew that if they came, they would at least get something that was broadcastable.
Sakura, I'm just wondering, do you have any photographs that you could share and we could pop up on the screen, please?
Yeah, I'll
Maybe,
get a few. It'll take me a minute, but I'll put it. I'll bring them over.
And I think a key thing that that I happen to know about those actions too is that Sakura has been very good at also making sure there will be someone there who can take good photos. Because even if the media doesn't show up in person, if you arrange a photographer to
speaking,
if you arrange a photographer to be there who in turn takes good photos, you can then get your own media out there and you can send it to the media and often they'll publish it if they couldn't make it out in person. So I think that's a key thing that you guys have done really, really well. I'm going to call on Min Young in South Korea to share a bit about their plans.
There is a very small office of Lockheed Martin in the city center of Seoul. So we're going to gather there and do some public stunt there with the Jack the Ripper costume. and we're gonna have a small march around the building of Lockheed Martin.
Wonderful. Thank you, Minyoung. We can't wait to see it. I know that some of our friends in Australia have some really big plans. I don't want to ask you to share anything secret, but if there are some things that you might want to share, I'd love to hear it.
I'm not sure that we have very big plans, but there'll be something in Melbourne. Usually our style is to find something that's not very fortified and walk right in is what we do. And we also have a focus, our solidarity focus on West Papua. So we have a West Papuan memorial set of photos of people who have been killed by the estate there. And we're also looking at Lockheed Martin in STEM education in another place, in a smaller sort of just telling a story that's come up in the news recently about Lockheed Martin in STEM. So that'll be sort of not so disruptive, but just trying to find a target and telling the story of that news article. So bringing the news article to life, basically, showing people are interested.
And I think some really key research that some folks are doing is in some places where there might not be a huge Lockheed Martin facility, what there actually might be is a really interesting partnership with maybe a local university or maybe with another big institution where they're profiting off of Lockheed Martin, and that can be a really important place to go as well. Or in some cases, people are looking up, well, the facility might be out of town, but in fact, the CEO, the executives, the board members actually live right downtown. What's their apartment building? Can we protest outside of it? So there are different types of targets that can make sense that don't have to be obviously a Lockheed facility itself. And of course, there's Lockheed's funders, there's people who receive funding from Lockheed Martin, there's the flow of money that can present other interesting places as well. I know that there are some other examples in the room. I also wanted to just share something really exciting, which is that there's a brand new group called Block Lockheed that has just started existing and has been doing some really interesting direct actions around Lockheed Martin in the past month. Why don't I show just a 1-minute video, because it literally is just 1 minute of them, in fact, blocking complete access to a Lockheed facility. I'm just gonna.
I think they're called Blockheed. Instead of
Okay.
Lockheed. Blockheed.
Yes, they seem to be using both. I think they're changing Lockheed signs to Blockheed. Yeah, it's such a great name. I love it. I'm going to show something from their Twitter. Just give me 1 second.
Have we made contact with them, Rachel?
We have reached out a bunch of times. We are going to do our best.
Oh, they're busy. They're busy doing it.
Yemen, Kurdistan, Afghanistan, all over the world, people.
Can you guys hear that all right?
Yep.
Great.
We're here outside one of Lockheed Martin's facilities near Bedford. Lockheed Martin being one of the biggest weapons manufacturers in the world. Behind these gates, tanks, fighter jets, all kind of weapons of mass murder are created, manufactured and sold. That's why we're here today with Block Lockheed, a new youth-led direct action campaign taking on Lockheed Martin, taking on the arms industry in solidarity with all the people who are brutalised by their weapons and warmongering, whether that's people in Palestine, Yemen, Kurdistan, Afghanistan. All over the world, people are suffering because of the profit motives of the business of mass murder. And that's why people have been locked on now for 5 full hours outside Lockheed Martin's biggest manufacturing facility. We're saying no to war, no to the war profiteers.
So obviously that's a really high risk action, also a really powerful action where they did manage for the entire day to prevent any vehicles from going in or out of Lockheed Martin. So that's a huge impact on that facility in that day. Obviously, every group has to make their own assessment of risk. We're not telling anyone what to do, right? But we're presenting sort of a whole bunch of different options, a whole bunch of really exciting things that will happen on that day. And those are really just a few examples.
Rachel?
Some hands.
Rachel?
Yeah.
Leanne here. I'm just wondering, where was this block Lockheed? It said Bedford, but Bedford where?
In the UK.
In the UK. Okay, thank you.
Alan, I'm seeing your hand up. Is it something to share right immediately?
I have a question. Is it possible to ask?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's fantastic that you're organising the Lockheed actions, and we're very happy. Move the nuclear weapons money and Abolition 2000 and others to be engaged in this. One question I have is that this is happening during a time of the Russian invasion or war in Ukraine, and is there any space either in World Beyond War or in actions of any of the participants to also mention that it's not just Lockheed that the broader campaign is working on. We're also working on campaigns against the Russian military corporations. Move the nuclear weapons money is targeting United Aircraft Corporation because that's the one that's doing Russian nuclear weapons. But the weapons systems or the corporations.
Sorry, Alan, I'm just going to cut you off because we're really limited for time. I think the short answer to your question is that we expect every group in every country to pick their own additional focuses. Obviously, Lockheed is not the extent of the military industrial complex, not the extent of the problem. It's simply the biggest weapons company in the world. But we know that in different places, they'll focus on different angles. And we would, of course, encourage everyone to add in their analysis and to highlight what makes most sense in your location, I think is the shortest answer.
So we're very interested if anyone's are focusing on the other Russian ones, the ones that are joining that, making the tanks Ural-Vogelsvald, and the ones who are doing the Russian helicopters, JSC Russian helicopters. If anyone's doing campaigns on those, that's of interest to us.
Rachel, thanks, Alan. Can I just jump in and say that the reason this timing was chosen is because it is the annual general meeting of Lockheed Martin, and it's just a start really. And if we can actually affect the finances, they've profited 30%. The stocks have gone up 30% since the Ukrainian war began. And we abhor any in war making or any weapons, people who profit from weapons. But let's just use it to start and focus on Lockheed for today. Thanks.
What I will say is there definitely is a protest planned at Lockheed Martin's global headquarters in Maryland, in Bethesda. That is where they hold their shareholder meeting every single year, except they've moved it virtual this year. But nonetheless, that is where a number of the executives are. That is where people will be tuning into their meeting. And there is a public protest that is planned for there to make sure, that at this really important site for them. And while they're having this meeting where we know they will be announcing record-breaking profits, where they'll be bragging about how wonderful they are and essentially celebrating themselves, that will be there kind of to crash their party. So a whole bunch of different groups have come together in that area. It's near Washington, D.C. to try to be part of that. And one thing that will be happening there is they'll also be delivering some materials, including a petition that several thousand people around the world have signed and is open for signature until the 21st. And they'll be insisting that Lockheed Martin do receive that petition for them. The petition is calling for a just transition, for Lockheed Martin to transition their operations from creating weapons of war to creating useful technologies for the world that we need. I can share links to that petition, and others are, of course, very welcome to deliver that petition at other Lockheed facilities around the world. But I did want to highlight that, at the site of where their main corporate meeting is, people will be there as well. Okay, we can come back to other plans around the world later, but I want to make sure we have time for a number of things that we have planned. I want to open the floor to Bob in Philadelphia for just 2 minutes, because he is part of a group that has been protesting at a Lockheed facility for a very long time, very regularly. And I think there might be some important things for us to hear from folks with that kind of experience. So I know 2 minutes is not enough time, but I'd love to hear what you have to say, Bob.
Yeah, our group was established in 1977, and almost immediately we began focusing on General Electric. I mentioned that because General Electric was significant in terms of the mergers and acquisitions that created Lockheed Martin to be at birth the world's largest weapons corporation. We would say the center of the military industrial complex. When we focused, as I said, on GE for 15 years. Some of the highlights was, of course, the Plowshares 8 action in King of Prussia, now a Lockheed Martin site. And we've been focusing on Lockheed Martin since it was established in 1993. I hope everybody knows about Bill Hartung's book, Prophets of War, the book on Lockheed Martin. And our actions have been very varied. We've had higher risk action. People have climbed up on buildings. We've poured blood on it. We've locked down. We've done all of that. And then we've also tried to move to more larger actions, walk-ons, blockades of the driveways. And they go up and down in terms of participation, or I should say according to periods. And I think that's basically it. People have been arrested pretty regularly, at least 4 or 5 times a year in King of Prussia. There's also another site that is very crucial to Lockheed Martin, and that is the Lockheed Martin Surface Naval Weapons headquarters, which produces the Aegis system for surface naval ships, as well as Star Wars anti-ballistic missile system. Very important. And that's located in New Jersey, just across the river from, and we've been there. We haven't been there for a while, but we did conduct for a couple of years an ongoing campaign. People went to jail a few times, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, that's about it. We've been at it for so long that things begin to change. I mean, frankly, in terms of personal relationship, we know people inside Lockheed Martin. They don't generally admit that they know us, but beyond saying, "Hey, you're really nice, Bob," and but there is a kind of relationship, and we intend to continue that. There's some other things that people might have questions about, kinds of actions, what we've done. Our next action will actually be on April 15th, traditional, which is Good Friday, which we do every year religiously, no pun intended. That will involve a lot of crosses in the driveway with a die-in next to them, and that will be the civil disobedience. And we also hope that there can be, well, I think I'll hold that because I don't really want to.
Can't wait to see it. We'll look for updates. Thank you so much, Bob. It's just so cool to hear about this history, and since literally the moment that Lockheed was founded, that you were there at this facility and protesting them, and so to fit within that tradition, it is really cool. So thank you. And
I'd like to say hi to Alan Ware. Haven't seen him for a long while. Hey, now.
Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to Liz to share some concrete information in terms of us as the core organizers who are part of the group that threw together this global mobilization, what we will be able to offer to groups around the world organizing on that day. Really, you're planning your own protests where you are, and we can't wait to see them, but we are trying to prepare some materials to support you in doing that. So I'll let Liz go for it.
Okay, so I'm just going to fairly briefly actually mention the materials and things that we've got available to support everybody here. And just to remind you, it's really good to have your names and emails and stuff in the chat, so we can easily maybe send out an email after this with everybody directly. So yeah.
Let me just say, if you got an email directly from me telling you about this meeting, you do not need to put your email in the chat. But if you didn't, if it was forwarded to you by someone else, then please do get us your email so we can follow up. But if you got word of this meeting from me, I've got your email. We're good.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, so now we've got a somebody, I think it was Sakura, mentioned the importance of linking up with the media. And so we do have a press release template that we are preparing, and we are also going to make available a lot of information, background information about Lockheed, what they do, etc., who's investing in them, because they are a lot of, pension funds or superannuation funds or city council funds also invest in Lockheed, and of course ethical investing. And I'm actually working with Barry Coates in New Zealand from Mindful Money, who they are preparing some information about the background of Lockheed Martin. So from that point of view of the business side of things, it's very, very useful. We have already, you might have seen our petition, and it's quite a good opportunity maybe to, print out a copy of this petition with, I guess there'll be thousands of people who have signed it globally. And you might want to, gain signatures during the week, and perhaps at the end of the week at your action, present it to your MP or your government or your parliament, or maybe send a letter to the editor about it, whatever is appropriate. And I know that where I live, it's my local MP for Napier is actually the minister who's in charge of giving contracts, I think, to Lockheed Martin. Also, Lockheed Martin invests in Rocket Lab here in New Zealand, which is a company that tests and sends satellites and rockets up to space, a lot of which are to do with military purposes, targeting civilians, etc. So it's combining, using that kind of combination is really useful and good to know. Now, we also have a number of flyers here. Well, I'm not sure where they are, Rachel, you might be able to say a bit more, or Greta, about the flyers. Now, social media is really, really important, of course. If any of you are on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, or just plain old emails, we're working on some graphics, and I haven't got all the information to hand about that. So we will definitely be following up with all of that information about the social media and the messaging. And also, please just go to our World Beyond War sites, etc., to get more of that stuff live. Oh, the other thing we mentioned actually was live streaming, and I know Code Pink are really brilliant at live streaming from venues and events. And maybe that's, if you're good at live streaming, that would be a neat thing to do. You could even try it out, but that's something actually we think we might offer some more training for live streaming at World Beyond War in the future. So, and the other, all the information is on our website, which you've got, I'm sure. It's act.worldbeyondwar.org/stop Lockheed Martin. Maybe Rachel or Greta could pop it in the chat, just so it's all there if you need it. And of course, at the actions, if you can use the hashtag stop Lockheed Martin, and Twitter people will know that that's a way of connecting with everything if you're using Twitter. And afterwards, if you can please send us all photographs and report back so we can compile something globally. So I know that Alan has done this kind of thing, this kind of action with Stop the Nuclear Weapons, Move the Money globally, and it's created all these actions going around the world. And I'd also just like to mention my friend Ed Horgan from Limerick in Ireland. And he's also one of our long-standing protesters who goes, because although Ireland is a neutral country, the US military flies in and out of Shannon Airport all the time. And Edward and his friends are there just about every day, I think, protesting and asking them not to use neutral Ireland as a military stopover. So we're going to opening up to everybody to share. So maybe we can come back to you about that, Edward. So Rachel, I think that's about all I've got. Can you add anything that I've missed out, or might be more?
Yeah, so I just put a summary in the chat and we'll email it to you as well. I think Liz provided a lot of really helpful detail and context. The short of what you can expect from us within the next few days is a template press release, a petition to Lockheed Martin, that if you plan to deliver it, we'll get you a copy that has the thousands of signatures listed so you can deliver that impressive package. Flyers, they're like half of a page. You take a regular printed page, cut them in half. Some social media graphics, or just some pictures that you can share. And then, as Liz mentioned, some general information of about Lockheed Martin. So those are some materials. Of course, none of them will have information about your local context. So you can feel free to edit them. We'll make sure they're editable files, or you can, of course, create your own. There'll be general global information that applies to the company in general. And then, yeah, just to really reiterate the importance of what Liz said about, we want to be able to show that this happened all over the world. We won't just magically have all of the info and the photos of everything you all do everywhere. So please send them to us afterwards. And when you post them online anywhere, use the hashtag Stop Lockheed Martin. So hashtag Stop Lockheed Martin, all one word. That makes it very, very searchable. Then all of us, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or anywhere, can just search for that and see everything that's happening, so we can all amplify what each other is doing. The global site for the mobilization is actually stoplockheedmartin.org. You'll see that what we have up there is a map of all the confirmed actions that are happening so far that we knew about. If you have plans that you're okay with us sharing the details of publicly, please email them to us and we will add you to the map. That's also a way that other people can find your action and can come. If you have something that's a bit more secretive, just let us know, hey, there will be something in Germany, and we'll just put Germany on the map. We won't put the address and the time. We won't bust your secret. So let's get that map updated so we can really show that things will be happening all over the world. Yes, go ahead, Margie.
I was just going to say, just to thank you for all of that work and coordination. It's very excellent and very helpful. And I was just going to say, in terms of recruiting from young people and the people from XR and the climate movement, I think it's very important to have been seen standing shoulder to shoulder with them and getting arrested with them before expecting them to move over to the peace movement. That's my experiences. They really appreciate it if you're standing in with them and doing their work beside them. And then it's by relationship that they move over into the peace movement, if at all. And yeah, don't expect that just to happen without those really, really close relationships.
Okay, so now what we'd love to do, as Liz mentioned, is open it up to a broader discussion about how we can support each other's plans. I would just venture to say this is not the space to talk about how Lockheed Martin is terrible, to talk about their history. We should share that information with each other. And if people email me that information, I'll compile it and send it out. But we have such a limited time together, and mobilization is so soon. It's in just
Thank
2
you,
weeks.
Margie.
It's in just 2 weeks. So I do want us to focus here in just how we can concretely support each other. So for example, if your group has come up with a great slogan that you're going to be putting on a banner, or is designing a flyer that you know about, this is a great time to tell us about it so we can share it and make it available with each other. Or if you are looking for a bit of a support, like, hey, I'm having trouble finding where there's a Lockheed facility, someone else may be able to help with that. So more of like a problem solving and support space, I'm hoping, and not a convincing each other about the issues of the world right now, or about why Lockheed Martin is so terrible, because we can get that information in other ways, but we can't support each other with our organizing in 2 weeks as easily in other ways. And if folks who I didn't call upon earlier do have a plan that they'd like to share with others for inspiration, that's also very welcome. So why don't we take hands? So I'll ask people to use the Zoom reactions button at the bottom to put up their hand, or wave your actual hands, and I'll keep a bit of a speakers list. I see Stephen first. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So I'm located, as is Brendan, just outside of Vancouver. Not aware of any Lockheed Martin facilities here, but one thing that's been happening here in Canada through Lead Now and Council of Canadians is targeting, in particular, the Royal Bank of Canada, which is the 5th largest investor in fossil fuels in the world. And I think it was mentioned before about different institutions that are supporting Lockheed Martin. I'm just wondering if there's any, and Brendan might know, so maybe I should have asked Brendan first, but I'm just wondering if there's a kind of list of other supporters of other institutions that we might be able to target here in Vancouver, or other places around the world, I suppose.
So this one I can directly help you with because I'm the Canada organizer. I can connect you with some information. Canada's like public pension plan is an investor in Lockheed Martin, and there are some local spaces. But maybe if other folks here are choosing to target a place that isn't a Lockheed facility itself, they could also chime in to give those inspirations. But otherwise, I will also follow up with you, Stephen and Brendan, about Vancouver.
Rachel, can we ask Edward to say a few words and then perhaps go to Margie?
Yes, but back in Ireland, we have been pretty busy protesting at Shannon Airport. We have 4 people going on trial over the next 2 months or so. 2 veterans for peace from the US, Tara Kauf and Kenneth Myers, are on trial on the 25th of this month. And 2 other troublemakers, one called Edward Horgan and another called Dan Dowling, go on trial on the 15th of June. Our particular action, when we went to Shannon Airport, somebody allegedly wrote the words "danger, danger, do not fly" on the engine of a US Navy transport plane. So that will probably keep us busy. But in Ireland also, a number of people have organized Raytheon in Northern Ireland in Derry, and we have discovered recently that Raytheon also have offices in Cork and Dublin. So we will be looking at that over the coming months as well. So we've been busy on other stuff, but we fully support what's going on, against Lockheed Martin and clearly other arms manufacturers. And at the moment, huge numbers and quantities of weapons are being flooded into Ukraine, most of them being used to kill Ukrainians and Russians. And clearly, the people of Ukraine are being used in a proxy war by both NATO and Russia. And it is a crime against humanity. There's no doubt about that. So.
Thank you, Edward. Margie?
I was just going to respond to the sort of idea about choosing targets, and the other, apart from banks and funds, which I don't want to interrupt your thoughts on that, Rachel, but just generally the SMEs, what we call in Australia, they call SMEs the small and medium enterprises that are collaborators with Lockheed Martin. If you don't have a Lockheed Martin in your village or your town, you probably got a small or medium enterprise, especially in Vancouver. And the way you find out about them is by searching the defense magazines. There'll be a Canadian defense journal or industry journal. It's just an online journal, and they have huge amounts of information. Like we have one in Australia called Defence Connect, but there's a number of them in Australia, but you'll have one there, and Rachel probably knows what they're called. And they just got huge amounts of the information's in plain sight. And it talks about how the small agencies get in touch with the primes, the large agency, and then those small agencies are usually much more accessible, and you can just go there and tell them they shouldn't be in bed with Lockheed Martin.
Go ahead, Greta.
I just wanted to share Don't Bank on the Bomb is an amazing resource that has a list of the top financial institutions and their investments in weapons companies, including Lockheed. I put the link in the chat. It's super easy to check. I just typed in, it took me 2 seconds, typed in Royal Bank of Canada, popped up right there, 17 million in Lockheed. So you can check all the top financial institutions on that site.
You're mute, Robert. Put your hand up if you'd like to share, that'd be lovely.
I would just like to support what Lisa said and also what Edward said, because I think it's terribly important to get into ordinary people's minds that ethical investment is very, very important. And the timing is right now. I mean, our papers are covered with not only what's happening in Ukraine, but also about the weapons that are going in. And that is a concern the world over, from what I can see. So people are now responsive to these things. I gather that the Americans are sending in, probably today or tomorrow or something, drones with explosives in that they have trained the Ukrainians in to use. And they only take 2 days to train them, they say. The other group that somebody talked about are the naval weapons. And there again, they're using drones that we use all the time now to deliver our pizzas if need be.
I'm so sorry, Robin.
That way.
I'm going to cut you up here.
Timing is right now.
Thank you. I totally agree. It is it's an important moment to be highlighting these issues. I wanted to, well, first of all, I wanted to see if Isabel or Min Young or any of the other core organizers of this mobilization had something that they wanted to add that Liz and I hadn't mentioned. Maybe I'll let you think about that for a minute. And then the other thing I wanted to do was put out a request that I have, which is that I think we've sort of said, like, we'll provide a template press release that we local media, but really the local media, you know it best, and it's all in your court. But we are hoping, if anyone has any connections to any global media, any really large outlets, any places that might accept an op-ed or something really highlighting the global day of action. If anyone has those connections, it would be great to know about them. I think many of us have sort of the skills to put together a good media advisor press release or send it out, but sometimes it really takes a strong connection at a major paper to get something like this in global media. So an open call out for support if anyone has that. I think we could find some good people to put together some good writing about this global day of action, but to find a willing publisher would be very interesting. And yeah, please go ahead, Isabel.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Rachel and Liz, for hosting this space, and to everyone who's joining us and planning on carrying out actions. I don't have too much more to add. I would just say we're not talking right now about what's so bad about Lockheed Martin, but I do think it's important to have a really strong message, a really strong message about what's the local connection with the company, what's going on in your area, how is the people from your area connected to this company, and how have they been involved in local repression or acts of violence. And I think with the globalization of violence and arms and militarism, we can kind of get lost in technical aspects of arms, but it's important to kind of bring to light those specific stories of what it really means that these companies are having these huge sales. So that's the only thing I would add. Here locally, we're thinking of having a drums group. We found that making a lot of noise and music and making it something on the one hand that calls a lot of attention, and on the other hand that kind of invites people to stop and look is really useful. So that's an idea.
Can I just jump in? And I just wonder, Rachel, if it's possible for Maria and Mignon just to throw some photographs of recent actions to share on the screen, if that's easy to do.
It would take me a second, but I can try to bring up some images.
Thank you.
Are there other questions, thoughts, concerns about what's coming up that folks want to share at this time?
Can I ask one of the Raging Grannies to say a little bit about what you do at Actions, which is basically singing? Would you like to share about that?
We have some talented composers.
Okay, Francis, you're breaking up. If you could maybe turn your video
Amongst
on.
us, we're quite international. Actually, sorry about that. It happens. Okay, we compose lyrics about various issues to familiar tunes, and sing wherever we pop up at rallies or if we're invited or not. We have branches all across the US and Canada, even maybe some developing in other places. I've heard rumors of Raging Grannies developing in Australia, possibly the UK. And we just try and put issues in front of people in a quasi-humorous way with lots of satire. Like I said, we have a lot of talented composers amongst us, and we keep coming up with new songs. Name an issue and we'll develop a song around it. And we are quite consciously disorganized and not terrifically musical, but we go on the premise that anybody can sing. So I think that says it in a nutshell. You could Google us and learn a lot more with some great pictures.
Can you share some of your songs with us? And do you feel an inspiration to write a song about Lockheed Martin, somebody in your group? Perhaps, maybe.
Possibly. I put a link in the chat to perhaps our most relevant recent song, which is called Eppin' Jets. And it's to the tune of California, Here We Come. And it's a protest about Canada's plan to sink a lot of our money into a whole new raft of new jets to try and pretend that we have a military that can, do anything worthwhile. Anyway, you can check out the video. It's on YouTube, and it's one of our efforts during COVID where we did Zoom recordings.
Thank you.
And I should have mentioned, in addition to sort of the resources that just spilled water on my computer. That's too bad. In addition to the resources that the core organizers promised that we would send out to all of you, we will also distribute the resources that you all share with each other. So for example, you sent the link to the video. If anyone has song lyrics or really good Lockheed Martin chants that they've come up with, we'll compile those and make those available to all of us. Really good slogans, pictures of banners you have, just so we can kind of take inspiration from each other. Go ahead, Joan.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure that Raging Grannies started in, I think, Victoria, Canada, British Columbia, and also it's been alluded to, but just to be clear, people know the music for these songs because the lyrics are set to familiar songs, music. Thank you.
Rachel, I'm just wondering if Kirsty is still here and would like to share some of the actions that the Peace Action Manawatu group did a couple of years ago when at the arms fairs, and there were some major, huge puppets that are, 3 times larger than life, and some other amazing actions. And as a result of that and other things, the people were actually scared away the Weapons Expo. There hasn't been one for 2 or 3 years, has there, Kirsty? Would you like to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. So I guess we were kind of on the tails of the great work that happened with Peace Action Auckland and Peace Action Wellington, who are much bigger cities, obviously. And they had in the past closed down weapons expos in their towns. And I live in Papaioia, so it's there is an army base here. We've got an army base, and we have also Ohakea, so Air Force Base. So we're kind of a bit of a military town, but we don't have a big population. So we had a great mobilization by a bunch of people, mostly Tiano, who is now an MP, actually a Green MP, who really engaged the arts community to get on board. So we had the wonderful React made big puppets. They've worked with a lot of refugee communities. So we have some Syrian refugees and refugees from Bhutan and Afghanistan, and worked with those communities and made big puppets for them that were used in really a kind of a parade, I suppose, around the town to make mobilize people in the city to know what was going on. They also stopped, used nonviolent direct action to stop the delegates from getting into the Weapons Expo, both at their hotels and at the site. So it just became very difficult for them to actually carry on business, which was really the purpose of the whole thing. And they just decided to call it all off in the end. So it was really a fantastic thing. Yeah. That was a few years ago, pre-COVID. Feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Excellent, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. And I'm just wondering, we'll probably wrap up soon, but Joseph from Japan, would you like to say anything about what the actions that have been happening that you've been part of?
Thank you. I've been doing World Beyond War work here for the last few years, and we mainly work on military bases, protesting the new construction of 2 new U.S. military bases in Okinawa. But we also, I know some people who have been working on protesting a base here in Nagoya. I'm in Nagoya, Japan, which is in the center of Japan, and they've been working on this these kinds of issues, arms manufacturers. And I just found out, I didn't know, but there's a Lockheed Martin base, or not base, but factory not far from Nagoya. And so I thought, okay, well, we need to do something. But we haven't really done much yet with this. But I think the nuclear issue, the chance of nuclear war is a serious consideration. So I'm hoping to also be protesting, putting out a message against or in favor of preventing nuclear war. It's great to see all you. Thank you.
Thanks, Joseph. So I know that Isabel has pulled up some photos. I think a really great example from what they've done in Colombia of a relatively small group, but like with a big and powerful and artsy impact. So I'll give her the floor for 1 minute to show some of those photos. And then we will wrap up and just clarify next steps so everyone can know what to expect before the 21st. Go ahead, Isabel.
Yep, I just need you to give me the capacity to share the screen because it's not letting me right now.
Sorry about that. Now you can.
Okay, so we did a performance in front of the facilities where the second biggest arms fair is held in Bogota every 2 years, and we did a theater performance, kind of making a parody of the idea that people who negotiate with arms are playing with our lives, and think that it's okay to kind of make it a game to sell these arms. And these are some quick photos. I'm sorry I don't have better ones right now, but I'm just going to quickly show the video. It's in Spanish. But
Might need the sound on.
you couldn't hear it?
Can't hear the sound here.
We won't be able to hear the sound unless you close and reopen, but maybe just share the link to the YouTube in the chat and people can watch the full video on their own time.
Yeah, definitely. But that's just quick images. I'll share the link in the chat.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Isabel. So if anyone, we've just got only 2 weeks until this starts. So I guess I just want to highlight, let's be in touch with each other as much as we need to. Don't hesitate to reach out. We'll email out the resources we mentioned, and we also will create a little resource section on the site that compiles some of the things that we've talked about today. And I can't stress enough to take photos of what you do. In some places, we know it will be small, even if it's 5 people holding a Lockheed sign in one place. All together, the combined impact of everything we're doing on this one day that Lockheed Martin is counting on as their brag to the media about how great they are day, the combined impact is really important. So take a few good photos of what you're doing everywhere you are and make sure to share it with all of us. And in the meanwhile, over the next 2 weeks, if you got an email from me inviting you to this, then we have your email, and one of us in the core group will be in touch and will facilitate sharing everything you want to share, and also trying to answer any questions that you might have. If you need help customizing the materials we send out, the flyer, we can do a little bit of tech support around that as well. I think we want to be respectful of your time, and thank you so much to all of you for coming. So I think that's it for what we have planned for today. However, some of us can definitely stay on the Zoom for another few minutes. So if some of you want to stay on and have maybe just smaller conversation about strategy or just asking more questions about your local context, that's totally fine. But we just wanted to sort of first formally wrap up and say bye and thank you to everyone. I want to just give Isabel and Liz a chance to say something before we do, though.
Just quickly, if you need translation of small text into French or Spanish, you can also contact us.
Great, thank you. And thanks so much, Rachel and everybody. And just one small thing, if anybody does have any access, knows any reporters for any papers or whatever, or media, radio, TV, newspapers, journals, magazines, and you would like to share those with our media team so that that we could send information, media stuff, can you please share that with us? That would be really great. That would be great, because I mean, it would be great to get some media into some of the big, you know, well-known global newspapers or media. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. And thanks for, taking a chance on this first global mobilization against Lockheed Martin. We can't wait to see what you all do. And again, for anyone who wants to linger on the line here for a few minutes, please do stay and we can have a more casual conversation. But thank you.